Relationships can be awesome, but there are some dark sides to relationships that are important to discuss. I think maybe to some degree, I think of this being more of a continuum, so that it's not necessarily that, you know, that there's one extreme, or, I mean, there kind of are extremes, and oftentimes our experiences might lay somewhere in between. But there are some elements to kind of talk about as it comes to relationships. So we're going to look at betrayal, jealousy, relational intrusion, and then dating violence. So we look at betrayal, and betrayal actually can come in different forms. So if we look at romantic betrayal, it's basically an act against the expectations of a relationship, and it causes pain to the partner. So there are a couple different types of betrayal. One is sexual infidelity. So it's sexual activity with another person. Probably one of the more common ones that we will see as far as expectations. And if you talk to a lot of people, there are a lot of people who've engaged in relationships outside of a partnership that they've created with somebody, and creating relational or sexual infidelity. It's not about judging, at least not from my side. I think it's just important to know what the impacts are, what the consequences are for different types of betrayal, and a decision about how important the relationship is that you're in at that moment. So there's emotional infidelity when you're creating this connection with another person that might be a romantic attachment, but not necessarily that's leading to sex. So you can have strong attachments to other people, and that can be a form of emotional infidelity. There's deception, where a person is intentionally keeping information from the other person or manipulating the information with the other person. And then there's disloyalty, where you're hurting your partner to benefit yourself. And these are not pleasant for anybody to experience, I would say. Certainly not the person it's being perpetrated upon. But I think when we look at this, betrayal is intentional. And you can basically have a couple of different reactions to it. You can have relational devaluation, which really looks at that expectation of love and respect, and it's not there, essentially. So that person doesn't feel important in that relationship. And certainly the sexual infidelity can lead to that. A profound sense of loss. So the idea that you've wasted your commitment on this person, or that the trust has been blown, so they're really not going to choose to be involved any further in that specific relationship. Another one to look at is deception, and that's looking at misleading the partner by intentionally withholding information, or maybe giving information that's false or irrelevant or ambiguous. So you're kind of manipulating information so you're not quite being truthful. And it doesn't, in general, it's not going to create a very positive response for the person that's receiving the deception. So when we're talking about dealing with betrayal, there's a couple of elements to consider. First of all, the seriousness of it can really have implications on the outcome. And there are a couple different communication responses a person might have if they have been betrayed. One would be to actively confront the person to try to understand what's going on. Maybe they look to try to make changes to the behavior, just to change it so that it won't continue, so the person won't continue to betray them. They could stand quietly by their partner, choosing to forgive and forget, just trusting that time's going to heal things. They might stand by them but simmer, so they have a lot of pain and anger and venting and things that go along with it. Maybe they keep bringing it back up and reminding them that they betrayed them, but they choose to continue to stay in the relationship, or they can end it. If the betrayal is too substantial and they don't feel like there's a way to resolve it, then ending it might be the best option for them. So moving from betrayal, we're going to move into jealousy. And jealousy is a protective reaction or a threat to a relationship. And this actually can happen a lot online, where someone might try to put themselves between the relationship so that maybe they can have one of the people for themselves. I think in general, when you see things on Facebook, I kind of think about it along with a lack of maturity, sort of this idea that people don't see themselves as, well, they're not completely mature, so they're trying to manipulate situations, or they feel jealous over another person's situation, or sometimes they cause another person to feel jealous over it. So a person's wedging between them could be one of the issues, so someone outside kind of coming between them. But if another person's posting pictures, that can cause people to feel jealousy. I think I laugh because I think I watch too much Dateline. And I see a lot of it always seems like it's the spouse that hurts the other person, and you see those kinds of elements, you're thinking, wow, either that's super immature, or I think I was just watching 2020 The Night End. They were talking about a guy killing his wife because she was getting more attention. Saw the same thing with Phil Hartman, but going the other direction, where the wife killed the husband. So there's so much emotion and passion that goes along with it. And I think when we're looking through some of these kind of darker sides, you have to take into consideration how safe you are, and if that other person could put you in a situation of danger. If you can keep yourself from getting sparked by kind of having your own self-reliance and understanding your own value, that can help. And also checking with your partner. Like, is this true? I mean, I'm feeling this way. I'm feeling like, that your ex-spouse is trying to get involved in our relationship or whatever. And is this true? And should I be concerned? So maybe check in with them rather than just experiencing this jealousy and creating this behavior that goes around that jealousy. The next piece is a relational intrusion, and that's an invasion of privacy. And that can come in a couple of different forms. That's monitoring and controlling another person. So that's making sure that you know where they are at all times, where they might text you multiple times over and over again. Needing to know where you're at. And another one is snooping, like looking in your email account when you're not, or your cell phone when you're not looking, and they don't tell you that they're doing so. These are invasions of privacy, and they're not really okay. So they may see this as, the perpetrator may see this as being positive, because, hey, they're showing their love and they're being involved in what's happening in you. But and they oftentimes don't see what they're doing as being harmful to another person. But once it gets to the point of stalking, then that's illegal. So it almost depends on the degree to which a person is invading your space and your privacy. And I've seen this with people. I think the thing to know is it's not okay. It's not okay that another person does this to you or that you do this to another person. It's not ethical. It's not acceptable. And one of the ways to deal with this is really just to talk to the person directly and express that this isn't okay with you, that this behavior is not workable. Use a lot of I language. Be respectful and polite to the person and avoid lashing out at them. This person thinks that they might think that what they're doing is what they might do in a loving relationship, and maybe it was what they saw in their own family. So they don't know a better way of doing it. So if they don't know a better way of doing it, and you're getting upset at them, they don't understand. So it's a good idea to keep a cool head in dealing with someone that might be doing this to you, and know that a cooler head is going to make it flow a little bit easier. The last part is dating violence, and the textbook doesn't define it, so they use an example instead. And what I can say is I have a friend who was in a relationship. He's a big guy. So just like this story in the textbook, he doesn't believe in hitting women. And I think he was scratched. I'm trying to think what else happened. I think there was something else that got broken on his body with this person. And oftentimes she would be around men that would lash back out at her, and she would end up in the hospital. Now, this particular person was not that kind of person, and he wouldn't hurt somebody in that way. And so she really took advantage of that. So kind of sad and disconcerting, but it happens on both sides. Dating violence happens to men, and dating violence happens to women both. And it doesn't matter what sexual orientation is, or class, or ethnicity, or religion. It just is one of those elements that can happen again in a relationship. And if someone doesn't know and hasn't experienced it, they're not familiar with that. So there's a couple of tricks to it. I mean, there is this perception that why don't people just leave, or why couldn't they see what was happening? And a couple of the things that are challenges that show up in the textbook is that it doesn't happen all at once. So as the relationship develops, then the person feels a little bit more comfortable engaging in that behavior, and the person that they're being violent to is less likely to leave because they have more commitment to the relationship. So that could take a little while for that to kick in. Another one is that the potential abusers often mask their behavior early in the relationship, and then so they don't really necessarily see the warning signs initially. So what should you do if you find yourself in a relationship? Let go of the belief that you can save them. There is a lot of that ideology that, hey, I can save them, I can help them be better people. They apologize to me, so I should let them continue on being in a relationship with me. I think the big thing is to get yourself out and cut the ties with the person, have a safety plan about how to get out. Unfortunately, these are ones that can cause people to lose their lives, and it's not worth it. Your life is worth more than that. So it's important that you find a way to get help. On campus, we have something called the Phoenix Center, where they deal with different types of abuse that are there to help you. And then there's also, the textbook mentions the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-SAFE to help get yourself out of those situations. One of the things to notice is when it comes to warning signs that you might notice is that oftentimes the abuser will try to isolate you from other people. And I've seen that before, where they're jealous or they demand that a person stop being friends with people. That's an indication that you might be dealing with somebody that is abusive. They use power to control you. So they might make decisions about leisure activities. They might explode into anger. They might use sex. There's a lot of elements that they can use as far as power. They threaten people in various ways. They might be threatening you. They might be threatening your family members, your children. They might be using abusive language that is critical of you, or they might shift blame to you, and that happens a lot. I've heard that one before multiple times, where the person that's being abused is saying, oh, it's my fault, it was the way I was acting with them. And that's not acceptable. When you guys get in a situation, if that kind of thing happens to you, get out. And if you're the kind of person that's abusing, then get help so that you can maybe have a healthy relationship at some point. But again, if you've learned it and this is the only thing that you know about how relationships are run, then it's your only example, and you need to find other ways of doing it and learn other ways of being in relationships with people so you don't have to hurt people. Now, after all this kind of sad stuff, this is the dark side of relationships. But there are a lot of people out there. If you talk to them, you'll find them, and they've found ways to make these relationships, to make relationships work. Maybe it's one of your parents, maybe it's a grandparent, maybe it's somebody else in families where they've kind of found a way to dance around it and maintain a relationship. And maybe not all of them are healthy, and maybe they're not all healthy at the same time. But maybe they found ways to make relationships work. So know that it's possible to find those connections and long-term relationships with awesome people. So don't let the dark side disappoint you. Thank you.